One of the biggest problems that companies have is that they don't have a good visualization or understanding of how much of the work that their teams are doing is really moving forward the needle. How much is this work bringing business impact? Understanding how much of the work or the percentage of the work that your teams are doing and understanding how much of that work is really moving your goals forward is something that is very important. And from my point of view, KPI Trees is probably one of the frameworks that is out there that can help you visualize this relation between the work that the teams are doing and the goals that you have as a company and how you measure those outcomes. What I've done now is that I created a Notion template to follow the KPI Trees framework. What this template does is that it creates or shows the relationship between the projects that your teams are working and how they relate to the different strategies, if they relate to them, how they relate to the goal of the company, and also how they relate to the KPIs, the success metrics that you had defined for those to achieve your goals, basically. This template I created here. I'm just going to walk you through it quickly. What it does first is show a little bit like the relationship of a KPI tree. A KPI tree, when you look at it, is basically a tree that it shows first on the top, the vision, then what are the strategies, then the projects that you're working on, and how those are fitting into the different KPIs. I'll try to put an image of that while I'm talking about it so you understand it better, the relationship. What this table is doing is bringing that linkage. And here what you can see that for each project is telling me which project is working for or the vision that is moving forward. You can choose how to use it. Then you can decide whether this work is strategic or not, whether it's moving a certain KPI or not, or several KPIs. It's actually, some of these projects, sometimes they can move several KPIs or they can move several strategic goals. Not very common, but it happens sometimes. So you're in luck if that happens. And then you have the work type. I call it work type. I think that's probably one of the most common names. Is this work type strategic? Is it moving my strategies forward? Is it moving my goals forward? Is it maintenance? Maintenance are the things that you have to do because you want to keep basically the lights on. You want to make sure that your product still runs in the future. So if you think about companies that are growing, you want to develop more the strategic goals. If you think about companies or products that are very established and they are more like in a very mature part of the life cycle, of the product life cycle, probably you have more maintenance than you will have strategic work. And then finally, you have what I call supporting. And by supporting, usually what I mean are work that potentially is more like one-off work that is not necessarily bringing a ton of value to either your strategic goals or is not necessarily to maintain your product. How this works, this table, is basically I just would add a new idea or a new project that I think I could be working on. So for example, let's say that we collaborate with a restaurant chain in Mexico. Sorry, I cannot think and write at the same time. I'm not one of those people, so I had to go a little bit slow, but now it is there. And I would say that yes, it's for the same the same product. But is this moving a strategy? Well, I would say no, because it's neither. This was an example of a food delivery app. And here the strategic goals basically are expand to the Canadian market or reinforce the US market. Well, being in Mexico, it would not help any of those strategies. I'm not saying that it would not be important or it would not be a good opportunity, but if my focus at this point in this whatever scope of my strategy is a couple of years, it's in the Canadian market and in the US market, that would break away from that scope, that would break away from that goal. And if I do that, then I'm basically diffusing. I'm diluting my efforts. I'm trying to tackle too many things at the same time. So I would say that for now, this is not strategic, so I wouldn't label it as anything. And does it move any KPI? Well, it could move a KPI, but I'm not completely sure that it moves. It certainly doesn't move any of the first three ones. It might move the active users. So this is a column that is generated by basically these two. So it's helping you decide whether this is potential waste or is potential ally. It's not telling you that you should label it that, but it's just trying to help you make the decision. So now when I think about it, is this strategic? Is this maintenance? Is this supporting? This is not something that KPI Trees does, by the way. KPI Trees just shows you the linkage between them, and it shows you whether there are maybe projects that are not linked to any strategy. But I like to do this because then I have a visualization of how much of my work is actually being strategic or not. And I would say that this is not strategic because it's not moving any of my high-level goals forward. It's not maintenance because I don't need to do this in order to keep the product running because, well, it's a food app, a food delivery app. It really, adding a new restaurant chain is not a work needed to keep it running. This is supporting. And that would be the way that I would label it now. Hey, before I move forward, if you want to work with me, you can go and check the links in the description to see how I can help you. The next one that I think I like to visualize a lot is this one. This is probably my favorite view because here I can see that whether my work or the work that my team is doing, especially if you're working with many teams and many products, having a visualization like this is great because it's going to help you understand that, hey, 40% of my work or the team's work right now is strategic. 25% is maintenance and another 33% is supporting. This means that keeping the lights on is at 25%. That's probably quite reasonable, especially if you think about software products. 20% might be a little bit better, but less than 20% is probably not very realistic unless you're in the very early stages of your product. And of course, the more mature it is, probably you have more maintenance load. Doing a strategic work, this is the one that is advancing you to grow in the product. This is very important for you to make sure that your teams are focused on helping you grow the product, helping you grow the business, the impact that product has. So having the larger this number is, the better. And here is the concern. You have 33% of your work that is really not helping you really advance this work. It's not really helping you advance your strategies, your goals. And this is something that I would challenge. Basically, I have 4 items here that are not aligned with that. I just noticed I had a filter wrong, so I changed it here because I was playing with this earlier and I was not showing the exact filter, but this is related to those ones. So here I say that they're supporting. Why I have this visual? Because here is easy to identify those 4 supporting projects. If you have 100 projects and different products, it might be very difficult. But here you can see, for example, which ones are those projects that potentially are not bringing value to the work that you are doing. And these ones are the ones that, especially if you are a product leader, I would challenge. I would look and go to the product managers, whoever has been planning this one, and really ask, why are we doing this? And is this something that is really needed at this point? It might be okay to have, like, for example, I would add a share or a share order button. Is that useful? Well, could be kind of cool to share, but how often are you going to, or our customers are going to need that? That's a very good question that you probably should ask. And whether this is something that you should be adding to your product or not at this point. And these 2 last visualizations in the dashboard, in the bottom, I really like them because it takes the other point of view. It looks from, hey, here I can see what is the distribution of work, what is the work type, and am I being strategic or not? But that doesn't answer all the questions that you may have. For example, how much work am I doing that is really moving forward a specific strategy? And this is a very important question because I might be putting too much work in one of the strategies, but too little in the other one. Like we see in this case, I have a lot of work to enter the Canadian market, but I have a little work to reinforce the US market. Is this enough? It might be enough, but it might not be enough. And if it's not enough, can I find other opportunities that can help the US market? Can I shift maybe some of these things to be done later because they don't need to be done now, so I can actually balance better? So you have to understand what is the distribution of work and where do you want to put more effort. It might make more sense, a lot of sense, that you first focus very heavily on one of the strategies and then you shift and focus heavily on the other strategy. So that might be okay, but you have to have a plan and understand that this is the goal. It goes the same for the KPIs. Here I can see the different KPIs and how much work, how many projects I have assigned or are contributing to those KPIs. And then I can decide that, hey, well, based on this, I have enough work, or I'm doing enough work to really move forward those KPIs, or not really. I don't have enough work that is going to affect those KPIs. And I have, for example, maybe a little bit too little work that is going to help the percentage of active users. So this dashboard, I like it from the point of view that it gives me that high-level visualization that, especially if I'm a project manager, if I'm a product leader, if I'm a product operations person, I can really have that overarching view of where the work is and understanding that are we balancing properly the work or not. And then it helps me ask the questions and understand that where are we putting our focus, where are we trying to move forward, or where do we see that which work or what work do we see here is actually going to help me moving the needle, moving those strategies and those goals forward. And finally, another thing that this template has is that it has the documentation on how to use it and then how to actually understand or really learn how to use the KPI trees. So you can find all that information here. I have a video about the KPI trees. I'll link it in the end so you can go and check it out. But if you're interested in this particular template for Notion to apply or start applying KPIs to really start driving strategic alignment of your work, the work that your teams is doing, and understand really how balance or not their work is, you can go and find it in the description of this video. You can find the link there. So I've done this template for Notion because I think that Notion is a great tool to use for pro operations. If you're using some other tool that you are using for pro operations purposes, I've used others in the past as well, please comment below and let me know. And if you think that there's some other frameworks that you would like me to support or create templates around, please let me know also in the comments and I will see what I can do with those ones. As I said, you can find the video on the KPI Trees framework here and figure out better what it is all about. I'll see you in the next one.